Sheriff John Tyson lives in a small American town and is working his last day before retirement. A local farmer reports a missing truck, and Tyson, along with his assistant, heads to the location. Unexpectedly, he notices a scorched spot in the middle of a field over which crows are circling. In Long Island, housewife Anisha starts her day with a jog, then prepares breakfast and wakes up her children, Luke and Sarah. They run to their father, Amit, and the woman watches their antics with a smile, confident that everything in her family is in order. On the other side of the world in Tokyo, astronaut Hinata greets the dawn. Today, she is scheduled to go to space. She bids farewell to her beloved city and writes a love letter, then heads to the spaceport where she delivers a speech broadcast across Japan. At the Space Research Administration, an engineer notices colleague Mitsuki's peculiar behavior towards the astronaut. Suddenly, the management calls Mitsuki to inspect one of the spacecraft's nodes, giving her a chance to say her personal goodbyes. Meanwhile, Sheriff Tyson and his assistant inspect the scorched circle in the field, pondering its origin, and find the burnt truck. As they begin their inspection, they are suddenly attacked by a swarm of locusts, forcing them to take cover. At the same time, a strange incident occurs at the school where Anisha's children study. All students inexplicably start bleeding from their noses, except for Luke. Yet Anisha takes the children to the hospital. The doctor finds no abnormalities and advises rest. They return home. The woman tries several times to contact her husband, but he is unreachable. Luke locates him via geolocation, and Anisha realizes that Amit is somewhere outside the city. Simultaneously in Japan, the spacecraft successfully launches. People around celebrate, but Mitsuko reacts strangely. Meanwhile, Anisha goes to the point marked in the geolocation and finds her husband in a beautiful country house in the arms of a young blonde. However, she leaves without taking any action. At home, she finds the webpage of the woman living at that address, who turns out to be a fairly well-known chef. Mitsuki returns home, and it becomes clear that she and Hinata were a couple. At this time, Amit returns home. His wife serves a refined dinner prepared from his lover's recipe and asks only one question: why? She had tried so hard, managed the household, looked after herself, and raised his children. Suddenly, there's a loud noise outside. The house shakes and objects fall. The awakened children start screaming, and the parents rush to their room. Soon, everything calms down, although flames rage outside. The city's leadership and colleagues honor Sheriff Tyson, thanking him for his many years of honest service. He takes the floor to respond, but suddenly falls silent and leaves the hall. He drives to the scorched field and, standing in the middle of the circle, looks up to the sky, hoping to find answers. Suddenly, the ground beneath him starts to crumble. Something pierces his head. Falling, his last sight is a semi-transparent entity swiftly soaring towards the stars. Anisha, looking out the window, sees her neighbor's house is destroyed. Amit checks the connection, but it is gone. The family goes down to the basement, but the woman cannot bear to see her husband and rushes to go outside. He goes instead and sees a street in ruins on fire. Surviving neighbors run between the houses, unsure what to do. Some get into cars and drive away. At that time, in a London school, a boy named Casper is being bullied by a stronger and more insolent classmate, Monty, who mocks him for his illness and his disabled mother. The teacher stops the beating and orders the children to get on the bus. In Tokyo, Mitsuki receives a message about some unforeseen situation and heads to the control center. It turns out that the spacecraft has stopped responding to calls and has disappeared from the instrument's field of view. Mitsuki checks the system. There were no errors, nor were there any distress signals. Moreover, NASA and Roscosmos have also lost communication with their satellites. Finally, an alarm signal sent from the station 3 hours ago activates. People see the destroyed station, and Mitsuki reveals her true feelings towards Hinata. In Afghanistan, Sergeant Trevon and his squad are resting. The guys joke, talk about their families, eat, and just fool around, enjoying the peace. Later, during the communication hour with their families, it turns out that not everything is fine in Trevon's relationship with his wife. He doesn't show it and, after finishing the conversation, talks with Soldier Chavez, whose grandmother considers the sergeant a guardian of his soldiers and asks him to keep her grandson safe. At the same time, the bus with the school children is driving on a mountain road, and suddenly it hits a pothole. The children's belongings scatter, and Casper's album ends up with his seatmate Jamila. The girl looks at his drawings, which she really likes. To Monty's envy, she asks Casper for one of his headphones to listen to his music. In Long Island, neighbors suddenly notice that Amit's house remains intact, but at that moment, Luke suddenly starts screaming. His ears hurt a lot, and he hears the same word repeated over and over: Vajo. Amit goes out, supposedly to call an ambulance, but Anisha, picking up the parallel phone, hears his conversation with his mistress. At that time on the bus, Casper starts to feel uneasy and loses consciousness. The driver gets distracted by him and fails to see something falling from the sky in front of the vehicle. The bus loses control and plunges into a deep canyon. Meanwhile, in Long Island, Anisha provides assistance to her son when something flies into their window, and the woman realizes that they can no longer stay in the house. She orders the children to pack up, and she grabs the necessary items herself. Trevant's squad is sent on a combat mission. All communication with one of the squads has been lost, and they are ordered to find out what happened. The guys head to the specified city, where they are surrounded by civilians, all pointing to the school as a concentration point for terrorists. The squad moves to the school, but they only find frightened children. One of them, sitting at a table, draws a circle on a dusty desk, and blood flows from his nose. Suddenly, the boy starts screaming, pointing through a destroyed wall off into the distance. Anisha leads her family out and seats them in her husband's car, but it mysteriously won't start. Then Amit runs to a neighbor's departing car, asking to be taken alone. But the neighbor drives away, and Amit admits that he was planning to leave the family this week. His shocked wife orders him to sit in the passenger seat, and she starts the car herself. In Afghanistan, Trevant's squad reaches a partially destroyed settlement in the direction indicated by the boy. But as they enter the houses, suddenly everything around starts to vibrate, and sand begins to fly upwards. Visibility is lost. Trevant tries to gather his squad around him, but people can't hear him. Suddenly, everything stops, and the stunned people see a huge object on 3 legs rising above them. Trevant commands to fire, but there's an explosion, and the sergeant loses consciousness. He regains consciousness alone. All his people have disappeared. The vehicle also won't start, and there is no communication. Anisha's car gets stuck in a huge traffic jam as they leave the city. People notice that electricity is cut off in all the houses. At the same time, the school children come to their senses. It turns out that only the driver is seriously injured. The problem is that they are at the bottom of a huge crater, from which it is very difficult to escape. In Afghanistan, Trevant decides to walk to the city, but due to the injuries he received, he quickly loses strength and consciousness. Casper and Jamila try to help the driver, but quickly realize that they cannot manage without doctors. Then, Monty attacks the boy, blaming him for the accident, since it was he who distracted the driver with his seizure. Some suggest trying to climb out, but Monty takes charge and forbids doing so. Anisha's car reaches a gas station. While the woman takes the children to the restroom, Amit is supposed to refuel, but other drivers push him away, sensing his confusion and weakness. Anisha notices keys left on a table from someone else's car, orders her family to get into it, and steals the vehicle. Trevant is found by an Afghan peasant who shares water with him and makes signs that he is ready to help. In Tokyo, Mitsuki arrives at the control center, where a massive inspection is underway. She demands access to the investigation, but her boss rudely orders her to leave. She then snatches an electronic key from his neck and runs to the secret cabinet where the main computer is located. Her colleague, unintentionally involved, helps her find the necessary files. Casper starts a fire. Monty unexpectedly apologizes to the boy, and he confesses that his mother is wheelchair-bound after being beaten by his father. Casper still struggles with not being able to help her then. It turns out that Monty just wanted to make fun of him, and now he has a secret he can reveal to others when he wants to completely destroy Casper's reputation. Anisha's family reaches a roadside motel. The news reports accidents, explosions, and the death of many people worldwide. The woman switches to a children's channel. At that time, Monty declares himself the leader, and Casper has to vote for him out of fear that he will tell the other kids. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, Trevant comes to at a fire started by his assistant. The boy can't understand what he saw and where his squad went, but the Afghan doesn't understand his questions and simply helps him survive. Casper goes to visit the driver, who mentions something fell from the sky, but the boy considers it hallucinations. The school children sleep right in the bus, while Casper draws the sleeping Jamila. Meanwhile, Monty puts out their fire. Mitsuki finds recordings of the last minutes of the astronauts' lives, which reveal that something crashed into the station. The last word her friend repeated before death was Vajo. In England, Casper discovers that their driver has died and informs the others. In the motel, Anisha's children go to the restroom to avoid waking their parents and discuss their strange behavior. Then Sarah notices a strange fragment in Luke's bag. He explains that he found it, and although he doesn't know what it is, won't give it to anyone. In the morning, the military wakes the guests and announces a general evacuation. While Amit finds out where they can go, Anisha finds an ultrasound photo in his phone and realizes that her husband's mistress is pregnant with his child. Meanwhile, at the Space Research Control Center, there's an active discussion about the tragedy. Mitsuki is convinced that something large collided with the station, but her superiors prefer to blame it all on space debris and fire the rebellious engineer. Her colleague tries to convince her to accept the situation, but she is certain that all Earth satellites were attacked, which is why all communication was lost. In England, the children despair, realizing that no one is looking for them. Monty is in charge, though others suggest trying to escape on their own. Casper opposes Monty, who then reveals his secret to everyone. This spurs the boy to determinedly approach the steep stone wall and begin climbing. Anisha's family drives away from the city. Unable to hold back any longer, the woman expresses her disgust at her husband's actions. Luke, tired of the quarreling, asks to stop the car, supposedly needing to use the bathroom, and walks into the forest. Casper reaches the Earth's surface, and Monty suddenly declares that if this weakling could do it, they can all escape. The children begin to scale the wall, and Afghan brings Trevant back to the city where they were before the attack by the unknown object. However, the streets are deserted, and no one can help the sergeant. Finally, he reaches a hospital where he finds an injured Chavez, but the young soldier doesn't know where the rest are. One of the doctors accuses the Americans of killing people. After all, it was their presence that brought the militants, who are now killing residents. At that time, the school children, having climbed out of the pit, reach the road and find it destroyed. Pieces of some device, clearly fallen from the sky, are scattered everywhere. Examining it, Casper notices Russian letters and hides his drawing, which depicted the event, but this was much earlier than these events. Anisha and Amit look for their son in the forest and come to a cabin in the woods, where they are met by an armed elderly man. Recognizing that they are looking for their son, he invites them inside. Luke is with them, and there will also be a place for the family. Trevant, taking Chavez, tries to leave the hospital and comes under fire. The sergeant, firing back, manages to get outside, runs to a car parked nearby, and finds that the soldier has died. He presses the gas and drives away. In England, a debate flares up among the school children again, but now everyone supports Casper and agrees to continue walking instead of waiting for help on the spot. Mitsuki arrives at the home of her friend's father, who worked for the space agency for many years, and offers to listen to the last voice recording of Hinata. He turns on the equipment, and they suddenly see the soil in a flower pot begin to tremble from the vibrations. But what if the speakers were much more powerful? In Afghanistan, Trevant arrives at his base and finds it absolutely deserted. He tries to make contact with anyone, but to no avail. However, he finds an order for the immediate evacuation of all military personnel. The couple sheltering Anisha's family admits that there is almost no food left. The woman decides to go to the store while her husband will watch the children. The school children find a truck full of food on the road without a driver. Casper tries to understand what happened. One of his friends turns on a radio and catches a message about evacuation. Suddenly, Casper feels a strange sense of unease, and the rest hear unbearable sounds. In Japan, Mitsuki sneaks into the control center and summons the chief for a discussion. He's furious with her behavior, but when she admits that her interest in the incident is not just curiosity, but driven by love, he confesses that she was not the only one to hear that voice. That's why the center is filled with linguists. In America, Anisha arrives at the store, but the shelves are empty. Suddenly, soldiers enter, and the woman admits that she is a doctor. They ask her to come with them and help the injured, offering food in return. Anisha agrees and gets into an ambulance where other doctors are already seated. In England, Monty snatches the radio, accusing the others of stupidity. Adults, as always, have messed up, so there's no need to listen to their commands. He opposes going back home, although the others want to. In Afghanistan, Trevant buries Chavez and decides to return home. In England, Casper tries to persuade Monty to join them, and Monty suddenly confesses that things are very bad in his family. His father is unfaithful, and his mother just cries. Jamila supports Casper and also suggests going to the city, but someone doesn't want to leave the truck full of food, and the team splits up. Anisha is brought to a field hospital where she sees many wounded and starts helping. They are operating on a soldier when the woman suddenly notices something strange in his wound. She pulls out something resembling a small black octopus. Her colleague decides it is a foreign body and praises her. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, the chief plays a recording obtained from the station, and Mitsuki realizes that it is a language without sounds. Clearly, these are aliens. He cannot allow her to participate, but he pretends not to notice the theft of a universal key. He gives it to the girl, explaining that he would do anything for his wife. In Afghanistan, Trevant finally gets through to his wife and, despite the difficulties, promises to return. But she asks him to watch TV, where a broadcast of world leaders addressing the population is being shown. Anisha is also watching this broadcast. the President of the United States announces that they can confidently say that Earth has been attacked by extraterrestrial civilizations. She asks everyone to remain calm and unite as they are all one family. Martial law is declared worldwide. Anisha, after working at the hospital, runs away from the military and rushes to get to her family. She doesn't have a car, and the woman moves on foot. Soon, she comes across a devastated military column. She tries to start a car. After failing, she checks the dead soldiers and takes a pistol from one of them. By the time she reaches a small house in the forest, it's already night, but no one responds to her calls. Anisha checks the first floor and finds a dead dog. The woman cries in horror as the house begins to shake. Frightened, Anisha drops the pistol and runs upstairs. Suddenly, she sees the homeowner, who extends his hand to her through the attic hatch. He pulls her up, and the woman sees her family. Now she cries with happiness that everyone is alive, although the homeowner asks everyone to be quiet because no one knows what the aliens want. Unexpectedly, the homeowner's wife flies into a rage and starts demanding that the family leave. Her husband tries to reason with her and informs that he shot an alien. Nevertheless, Anisha decides to lead her family away. They argue, and Sarah accidentally falls into a hole in the ceiling and starts crying loudly. Anisha runs to her, but as she picks up her daughter, she hears strange noises and sees an alien resembling a giant black octopus inspecting the floor. Anisha and Sarah hide in a closet and watch as the alien moves around the room. Meanwhile, the house shakes again, and the homeowner's wife stumbles and falls between the floors. The husband tries to pull her up, but something grabs the woman by the legs and drags her down. Taking advantage of this, Anisha and Sarah hide in the pantry, and Amit and Luke descend from the attic to the second-floor gallery, where they lie low, waiting for a moment to run. Amit signals to his wife towards the barricaded door, explaining that he will clear the way. Although his wife is very scared, there is no other way out. Luke reaches the pantry, and the man goes to the door and starts removing items. Then Anisha sees the approaching alien in the mirror. She tries to warn her husband, but is afraid to shout. The alien attacks Amit. Anisha picks up the pistol, leads the children to the basement, and after breaking a window, manages to push them outside, then climbs out herself. At the entrance to the house, there is a car, but it is locked. Suddenly, the homeowner runs out and throws the car keys to Anisha. The woman opens the car and pushes the children inside. The old man tries to shoot at the aliens but is killed. Rain pours from the sky, and Anisha can hardly see what's happening outside. Suddenly, the windshield breaks, and the alien starts climbing into the car. Anisha shoots at it, but the bullets do no harm to the creature. The woman defends herself with whatever she can, and suddenly she grabs a piece of debris found by Luke. Anisha hits the alien with it, and it suddenly dies. The shocked woman throws its carcass out of the car, and just when she is about to drive away, she suddenly sees wounded Amit coming out of the house. She helps him get into the car and steps on the gas. After driving away from the house, Anisha stops because Amit is getting very ill. At this time, Trevant surveys the ruins of the nearest settlement and meets a family of Afghans. The man tells that the military base is destroyed, helicopters burned, and he admits that they are sneaking to Kabul to fly out of the country. In England, school children make their way to a small village where they stop a car driven by a woman. She tells them about an alien attack and the death of her family, which the children take as a bad joke. They ask her to take them to London, and after a long argument, the woman agrees. At the same time in Japan, Mitsuki, her colleague, and Hinana's father are heading to a space observatory, equipped with the latest telescopes and technology. The girl had managed to send an order there to transfer all command of the project to her, after which all communication was cut off. Anisha performs a tracheostomy on Amit, and he begins to breathe again, to the children's delight. At the same time, Trevant takes the refugees in his car and rushes with them to Kabul. In Tokyo, Mitsuki orders to direct the telescope to the location where the space station should be. She intends to establish contact with the aliens and send them a message. The school children reach London and go their separate ways home. Jamila goes with Casper because her mother is likely in the hospital, as she works as a nurse. At the same time, Anisha and her family find an unlooted cafe. The children are delighted with the arcade machines, and the woman cooks lunch. Amit seems to rediscover his wife. She's an excellent driver and cook, and she even saved his life. He regrets spending so little time with his family. Later, they have lunch, happy to be alive. In Japan, the telescope continues to scan the sky in search of the space station's frequencies. Soon, scientists realize that there is something huge above, emitting a lot of energy. Mitsuki suspects that this is the sound of 1 billion individual voices, that is, the collective mind of the aliens. And from this hum, it is necessary to isolate the voice of the Earth station. At the same time, Anisha's family reaches a shelter organized in one of the colleges, and unexpectedly, they meet there a surgeon with whom the woman operated on wounded soldiers. Ahmed is noticeably tense, realizing that these two have something in common, but Anisha leads her family to their assigned place. She has to admit to her son that she studied to be a doctor, but didn't get her degree because of the birth of her children. She has no regrets about it. In London, Jamila gets Casper to admit that he saw the aliens before the attack in his fits, which he captured in his drawings. The boy tells her that he has always been special, but he was treated for epilepsy, and now he hears someone's calls in his head. Suddenly, they hear sounds made by an alien, but manage to hide from it. It passes by. Trevant and the refugees reach Kabul, but on the runway stands the last plane, which a multitude of people are storming to board. The sergeant gives up his precious rifle to get them inside. At the same time, Mitsuki finally finds the station's wave, jammed by other signals. But at that moment, the military burst into the observatory and stopped the process. The plane from Afghanistan lands, but it turns out it was flying to London. Trevant tries to find out how to get to the USA, but there is no communication with America. At the same time in America, Luke inspects the base and meets a boy who got there earlier, and he offers to show him something special. In Tokyo, Mitsuki tries to ensure the continuation of her project to establish contact. The newly arrived boss convinces the military to give the woman a chance. In London, Casper and Jamila go to his house and find his mother dead. At the same time, Trevant finds a phone booth and calls home, but only the answering machine responds. His wife confesses that she is very scared and admits her love for him, despite the fact that he left her with their sick son, and the sergeant promises again to return. A romantic relationship develops between Anisha and the surgeon, as the woman is disappointed in her husband and wants to find support. She accidentally mentions that she killed one of the aliens, which greatly interests the doctor. At the same time, a new friend takes Luke to a room where lies the body of a person covered in some strange armor. It turns out the aliens do this with some humans in nature. Luke reports that his mother killed an alien. In Japan, Mitsuki sends a signal into the sky to open a communication channel with the shuttle. In London, Casper suddenly confesses to Jamila that he can kill aliens. He shows her his drawings and says that for success, he must fall into a prolonged seizure, which can only be done in a hospital. The couple goes to the hospital where the girl's mother works, but upon seeing an alien, they hide in a bar where Trevant is already sitting. The children ask him for help, but the sergeant does not want to deal with kids. Then Casper shows him the drawings and says that he can stop the aliens. After examining the images, the man realizes there is indeed something strange, and he agrees to get them to the hospital. At the same time, Anisha finds Luke by the body and sees how the fragment in his hand reacts to the body of the deceased. The military monitors the situation but are ordered to keep quiet about it. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Mitsuki admits that the alien code is much more complex than human code. So she simply transmits files with an image of Hinata, wanting to show what real people living on Earth are like. After sending the files, the girl falls asleep from exhaustion, and the military believes their mission to make contact has failed. Suddenly, Hinata's voice comes through the transmitter, repeating only one word, Wajo. Hearing her native voice, Mitsuki remembers through sleep that when they met, Hinata compared her to David Bowie in space. Hinata comes to in space where she was thrown during an explosion. But because she was in a spacesuit, the woman remained alive. She sees the destroyed station nearby and reaches it just as video files from Earth arrive. Unexpectedly, her lips seem to automatically start saying the word Wajo. On Earth, Mitsuki hears this and runs to the transmitter. In London, Trevant brings the children to the hospital, and they have great difficulty convincing a neurologist to induce a seizure in the boy. At the same time in America, Anisha and the hospital doctors continue experimenting with parts of the aliens. It turns out that they die from interaction with the strange fragment. After such results, the military announces the transfer of Anisha's family to a Pentagon laboratory, as the woman somehow managed to destroy one of the aliens. Hinata makes contact and asks for help. Although Mitsuki believes she is speaking with her friend, the military realizes that it is not a living voice. Most likely, what was Hinata is on the alien ship. Therefore, that is where nuclear warheads could be directed. The woman's father confirms that the voice is synthesized. At the same time in London, Casper is placed in a tomograph and induced into an epileptic seizure. In the USA, the vehicle transporting Anisha's family is unexpectedly attacked. The escorts fire back, but the car loses control and overturns. Casper's brain suddenly begins to flicker chaotically. The doctor does not understand what is happening. The boy sees everything happening around the Earth and utters Mitsuki's name. Trevant realizes the boy sees what the aliens see. Casper then warns that the aliens are already nearby. Then people see the aliens approaching the hospital. Casper comes to his senses and asks the sergeant to help him save people. At the same time, Anisha's family crawls out of the car and flees into the forest. In England, Casper says the alien is already in the elevator. In Japan, Mitsuki is cut off from communication, and when she demands it be restored, the military convinces her that she was not speaking to her friend. Realizing that an attack is imminent, the woman becomes furious as they are ready to kill Hinata. But she is reminded that the aliens have already destroyed millions of lives. In the USA, armed individuals are chasing Anisha's family. Ahmed asks his wife and children to run while he distracts the pursuers. Meanwhile, in London, Trevant leads Casper and Jamila away, but the alien finds them. The boy is sure they can sense him. The sergeant hides the children in a room, then confronts the alien and burns it with a homemade flamethrower. At the same time, Casper feels intense heat. Ahmed faces the pursuers, but hearing the invented name his wife called herself in the hospital, he shouts it, thereby signaling that the family should not come out. Eventually, the pursuers realize he is deceiving them. Anisha and the children hear the shots and run even further. Unexpectedly, they find a place in the forest contaminated by the aliens. Directing the fragment at the black strip, the woman sees how the black coating shrinks under an invisible influence. In Japan, Mitsuki makes one last contact with Hinata and asks about their first date. Suddenly, a David Bowie song starts playing through the headphones, which somehow activates the alien's activity. The military jams the signal, reminding Mitsuki that even if her friend is alive, her life is against the survival of humanity. And now, thanks to her actions, they have a target for a nuclear strike. In London, aliens surround Casper, Jamila, and Trevant. Then the boy says the aliens are in his head, and he is in theirs. By sheer willpower, he shuts down the alien brain. But he also collapses powerless. The sergeant carries him outside, but the boy loses consciousness. Anisha and the children see an alien spaceship explode high in the sky, and the aliens themselves fall dead across the earth. The planet celebrates victory. Hinata's father tells Mitsuki about his daughter and the compass he gave her in childhood, which she cherished deeply. In London, doctors try to revive Casper but declare his brain dead. Anisha, waiting for darkness, tries to find her husband but finds only the place of his execution. In Tokyo, Mitsuki returns home, and the next morning, she sees people celebrating the victory, praising Japanese scientists, and thereby her. Finally, the woman accepts her friend's death and organizes a farewell ritual, gathering items dear to her friend, among which is a compass. Trevant prepares to leave, and Jamila gives him Casper's album. The sergeant walks through the streets where people celebrate the great day and remembers his family. Anisha leads her children away from people, although Luke does not understand why. Soon they find an empty house and stay there. At night, they watch the news about the victory. Nevertheless, Anisha refuses to return home because her intuition warns her of danger. At the same time, people everywhere are collecting and disposing of alien bodies. Mitsuki burns Hinata's belongings, saying goodbye to her friend. Trevant, refusing to answer questions about the missing squad, requests his discharge and goes home. In London, Jamila says goodbye to Casper, playing his favorite music one last time, and finally meets with her mother. In America, Anisha and her children hold a symbolic funeral for Ahmed at the site of his execution, saying goodbye to their loved one. In the Amazon jungle, where the alien ship crashed, its study is in full swing. Although people do not always understand alien technologies, they believe the ship is alive. Trevant arrives at his home, but his wife refuses to resume their relationship. Then the man announces that he is leaving the army, and she forgives him. At the same time in Japan, Mitsuki tidies up her house and, turning on her laptop, suddenly sees an unfinished communication session with the space station. She enters the password, and suddenly the program starts working. On the same day, Trevant and his wife go to the ocean shore for a picnic. The man finds Casper's album in the trunk and reviews it. Suddenly, on one of the pages, he sees columns of hieroglyphs that denote the name of the Japanese space station. Meanwhile, Luke finds a fragment and notices that it continues to live. Suddenly, Casper's body opens its eyes. But the boy finds himself in some other world, where he hears his parents' old argument and therefore sees Hinata's father, who gives him his daughter's compass, which will show him the way. At the same time, Trevant and his wife admire the ocean and suddenly freeze in horror, seeing a huge alien ship hovering over Earth. The series follows 4 separate storylines of people experiencing the alien invasion and reacting to it in different ways. All of them experience love, loss, and hope to survive these incredible situations alive. But in the end, it seems everyone realizes that this battle is not yet over.